and welcome back to another episode of the Stripped Whole podcast, where we challenge our faith and our perspectives, and we find hope and encouragement in whatever season we find ourselves in. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let's jump right in. Gosh, I'm so excited to be back again with another episode. Welcome back to this Stripped Whole podcast. I'm Simcha and I am so happy that you're tuning in today. This is episode 7, guys. We're nearly done with season 1. How is this possible? It's gone so fast. I'm loving this and I cannot wait for season 2. I'm already preparing my list of guests and I'm really excited to see how it's shaping up. But we are still on season 1 and we've got a cool episode today. How is everybody doing? It is getting hot here in Israel and we are working hard at the moment on our Ascend program. Ascend is expanding, it is taking new ground, it is launching new things, and our 10-day program is no different. We are so excited to be launching new tracks and having new content, new guests, new partners, and I just really want to take 2 seconds of today's episode to just invite you to think about the last time that you had a life transforming experience. If you feel like you might want another one, because you know I always say to people there's never a bad time to have an encounter with God. And that is what the 10-day program is all about. It's about you, the nations, coming to Israel and having a life-changing encounter with God through transformation, through worship, through hearing his word, through seeing this land, through tying all of those things together into a life-transforming trip. And let me tell you, I never expected, I knew it was going to be good, but I never expected the number of stories and the life transformations that we've seen to be the case when we started out. It has been one of the most humbling things I've had the privilege of being a part of, is just to be able to facilitate God showing up like he has been on every program and seeing so many people going away changed. And I love that. I love that I get to just sit and facilitate and do my little bits and do my little contributions, but really it's about God and meeting with God, taking 10 days aside to just be in his presence, and the changes that come in a life that puts aside that time and listens to his voice and follows where he says. Oh my goodness, guys, I cannot even tell you how incredible it is. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I would love for you to go and visit the website. It's in the show notes. And see if you can get yourself on one of the next programs. There's going to be one running. We run them every year, once a year. Obviously, in 2020, we've had to postpone because of COVID, but we are going to be running it later in the year. Instead, you can hop on the website, check the dates, and get yourself on one of the programs. We would love to host you. Speaking of Ascend, you know, the story of Ascend is really a very interesting one. And it's a story I love to tell because it's just nothing to do with me. You know, when I was at home with my 3rd baby, I was in a very deep valley at that stage of my life. And I remember there was this one day where I was not dressed. I was in my pajamas. Had my dressing gown on. I was sitting at the table and I was by myself with my baby, and he was making a royal mess of my dining room. There was porridge everywhere and I didn't care. And I am quite OCD. If you're a Friends fan, I'm a complete Monica. And my baby was doing this and I just had lost, that's where I was at. Can you imagine if Monica had just lost the will to clean? I was there. That was me. My valley was just so deep and long. I just didn't have the will anymore. And I was about to have an incredible experience with God at that time. He met me in this most insane, deep, dark. I was not praying. I wasn't having a holy moment. And yet he chose to show up. and really give me a vision, which I'm not one of these weirdo holy people that gets crazy visions all the time. This has been the only one I've had, but it was like he showed me a slideshow of a 10-day program that had, I saw all these like snapshots of different places, different people, different things going on. And I just knew what it was when I saw these pictures. And during this time that God was showing me these things, I was like looking at my son who was throwing porridge around the room, but just completely unable to interact with it. So when God had finished showing me his slideshow, I came to, or however you want to describe that feeling of coming out of God's presence. And my son was just a mess. I mean, the porridge was in all kinds of places I didn't even know porridge could get into. It was really, yeah. But God had shown me something, and he had planted a vision, and he had given me a passion and a drive to see this thing come about. And what was incredible was I went to speak to my good friend, Sarah Lieberman, who is basically my closest friend and partner in crime and ministry. And I went and spoke to her about it, and I was terrified of talking to her about it because I didn't want to bulldoze or insert myself into things that wasn't my place to do that. And what was amazing was that after telling her what I'd seen and what God had said to me, she basically turned around and said, "You've just spoken back to me the exact vision that God gave me and God gave another person, exactly the same things." So that is how Ascend was born. And it's to do with today's topic, because today's topic is all to do with dreams and eternity and destiny. And these are all really kind of airy fairy words for a lot of people, but it's been my experience in life that God really does. He has an eternal perspective that we don't have, and we have a very linear understanding of our existence and of our lives and where we get from A to B, and we have to go to do university to do that and to learn that, and then we have to work, and life just erodes away passions and dreams that we carry. And I've it breaks my heart sometimes. I see people who don't even know what they're dreaming anymore. Life has just, maybe life has been more tough, or maybe they've got caught up in a rat race, or maybe they've created a to-do list that they have to do before they can ever get to the dreaming bit. We've all got our thing that we've subscribed to that has been a part of how these things get eroded away. But it breaks my heart to see people who just have no idea what their dream would be, or what God's put in them, or a passion or a drive that they know that they have, even if it's not the focus of their life, that they don't know what that is. And that's so sad to me, because that's so much a part of who we're made to be. God's given us the ability to imagine things differently to how they are. And that is a part of how we represent his image, because that's creative. And that's what God is. And that's what I love encouraging people to go and play. I always talk about our imagination to be a bit like a playground where God likes to meet with us and like have a bit of fun and play. And the problem with this playground is that it's a clean place that is safe, where we can just imagine a kid, just having fun, and he's creating this game, and there's all these things, and we can imagine things differently to how they are. But lots of things can go wrong with that playground. It may be that we start to bring things in to that playground that corrupt the innocence of that playground, or it may be that somebody forces their way in to that playground, and then we shut it down because we don't like being there anymore. There's all kinds of things that happen to us in life that can really corrupt and destroy this playground area that is actually where we get a lot of our creativity. And I love to see people's imaginations and their dreams and their creativity being rekindled and redeemed and restored, because I really do think that that is where God loves to meet with us. And I think he loves it when we imagine and dream things differently to how they are, because that's where we meet him. That's where God can speak to us about what could be. And that's really in the Bible all over the place. God is speaking about what could be all the time. In all the stories, it's about what could be. It's an example of what could be through this person or that person or this story or that story. And it's what aspires, it's what guides us through prayer, it's what gives us an aspiration of what we could be and where our relationship with God could go. You know, we read stories. Let's just take Daniel for an example, because I've just finished reading Daniel. You know, the story of Daniel is such an inspiration to me, because here is a person who knew the word, who spent time in prayer and was persecuted, but was rewarded for his faith. And that's a place that I can go to with God and be like, this is what could be. You know, I could be like this. The words should, could, would are all words that belong in a conditional, made up place that doesn't exist. It's all representative of our imagination and our creativity and what could be. And that is really what today is about. I believe that we are destined for eternity. We're not actually destined for now. This is just, I don't know if you've seen Francis Chan. He's one of my heroes. I love him and I love his teachings. And I love one of the examples that he's very good at doing practical visual storytelling. And one of the ones he did was talking about eternity, and he had this massive, long, huge, thick rope all over the stage, and you couldn't tell the end from the beginning. It was just all over the place. There was like this mass of rope all over the stage. And he's talking about eternity and what eternity is like. And then he picks up, he has the end of this rope, he picks it up, and there's this tiny little piece of thread wrapped around this end of the rope. It's a little red thread that you can see on the camera. And he says, this little bit of red represents our lives on earth. But this, all the rope that we saw, that's eternity. And I really believe that to be true. I think that God, it says in Ecclesiastes that he has written eternity in our hearts. And I love that verse because it just opens your eyes to the greater perspective. And that's what makes me so sad when I come across people who don't know what to dream, and they don't know what's in them, and they've lost their vision, they've lost their passion, and they don't know what their drive is. Because that's the eternity in our hearts, and those dreams and passions and drives, those are eternal. Those are things of eternal value. What you do in your job, how much money you earn, what we have, you know, cars and homes and stuff, it's totally perishable. It's not coming with us. It's going to burn. It's going to be gone. It's that other verse that says moths and rust. You know, it's the stuff that we don't get to take it with us. But those visions and dreams and passions and drives, that's eternal. And that's part of how God's made us. And I think it's so important that we know those areas in our lives. And I know I've spoken before about living for an audience of one, and I believe that feeds into this area of dreams, because, you know, God doesn't ever guarantee us anything. He might give you a vision and a passion and a drive and a gift for music, but he doesn't ever say to you, therefore you will have, you know, Wembley Stadium at your fingertips, or, you know, performing in New York. Or he doesn't give us that. One doesn't equal the other. But we've been so tricked by the world into thinking A equals B, but actually doesn't. A equals audience of one. If you have a gift, whatever that gift is, I am yet to come across a gift that cannot be invested in the private place. I just don't buy it. There is no gift that God gives us that cannot be purely for an audience of one, whether it's writing, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's engineering, architecture. There is no gift that God gives that isn't there to glorify him primarily. It might be that he allows a greater audience for you, and that's amazing, and that's a gift, but it's not a guarantee. And I think what I love about eternity is it makes it worthwhile. If you've got a dream, a vision, something that drives you, it gives you a perspective, and it gives you a reason to keep investing in it, because that's eternal value. Me investing in my music right now, I don't have an audience. I'm at home on my own. Well, sometimes I'm at home on my own, alone, playing the piano, only with God. Nobody else hears this stuff. It's just me and him. But it's a gift he's given me, and I'm very determined to invest in it. I'm very determined to invest in all my gifts because I know they have eternal value. And I think that we so easily lose sight of that because we get sucked into our linear timeline, we get sucked into the world's value system, and we don't understand that it's all, everything about who we're made is a potential fruit for eternity. But one of the things that I have come to understand the hard way, because that seems to be a pattern in my life, that I learn things the hard way. One of the things that I have learned the hard way is that God entrusts gifts to people whose character is worthy of the gift. And in order for our gift to increase, and in order for our gift to grow, and in order for God to increase his blessing in our lives, we have to have a character that is trustworthy and worthy of the fruit that is eternal. And that is where gift and character are so interwoven. You know, you've probably met these people that are so gifted, but their character is significantly lagging. And that gift gets misused, it gets bad reputation, it gets misinvested, it loses its value and it loses its beauty because it's not being stewarded well by the character. But then you, on the flip side, you can sometimes meet these incredible characters who have so many gifts and often don't even realize it because they've focused on their character being developed and trustworthy so that God can give them more. And I know this is a principle. I absolutely believe this with all that I am, that God is looking for trustworthy characters that he can trust with tools, that he can trust with greater tasks, with bigger space, with greater assignments. And I know that's definitely true in my life. And that is why, you know, one of the coaching things that I offer is character and gift development, because they are so connected, you cannot separate them. If you have a gift and you know you have a gift, the first thing you should be doing is going to the Word, going to God, going to that private place, going to that audience of one and asking for your character to be developed to a place where it's trustworthy enough to handle the gift. You don't just invest in the gift. You don't just grow your musical ability and go out there and try and get an agent. You need to have the two, because God needs to be able to trust you. If you want to impact the kingdom, if you want to be somebody who partners with God and is a mighty weapon in the hand of God, your character is the most important thing. It's eternally valuable. And I think that God uses a lot of the difficulties and struggles. You know, on the last episode, we were talking about the meaning and the struggle and finding the treasure in the struggle. And I think part of the struggle is there to develop the character. God loves to see a character that won't quit, that won't just give up and run away, that will actually engage with the struggle and grow through the struggle and take new ground as a result of the struggle. That's what Jacob did. He wrestled. He did not let go until he knew God was going to bless him. And that is a characteristic of somebody that God wants to partner with, because God did give him that blessing. God gave him ridiculous blessing, actually. So much blessing, like an unfair amount. I'm quite jealous of Jacob. You know, I wrote a book on wrestling for more, and I don't feel like I've got that blessing yet. I'm still fighting and I won't quit. But I think that's such a big key in identifying what our dreams are, what our calling is, what our vision is. You know, God loves a character he can trust, and he allows struggles, he allows storms, he allows valleys, because that is the place where a character is forged that can be trusted with the gift. One of the books that I wrote is a devotional called Dreaming, and it is 30 days of dreaming with God. And the thing that I love about this topic is it represents a season in life where God just took me on a journey of returning back to the original design he'd made me to be. And I was reintroduced to those dreams that I had often as a kid. You know, when I was a little kid, I had a bunk bed with my brother, and I used to do this thing every night. I was on the top bunk, and I did this thing every night where I would sing my heart out into my pillow. In my head, I was Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey. That, in my head, that's what I sound like. Still now, I'm not. I've come to understand that I am not those people. But in my head as a child, that's who I was, or maybe Celine Dion on a good day. But I was convinced nobody could hear me when I sang into my pillow. And it was only when my brother would kick from underneath on the bottom bunk, when he would kick from underneath on the bottom bunk up and like move my entire bed, that I understood, oh, my brother can hear me singing. But it was, I was there in my bed and I was singing into my pillow, and I was at the top of my lungs singing with all that I had, imagining myself on massive stages like I'd seen Whitney Houston doing. And that was my dream as a child. It was not corrupted by adult lenses of wanting fame and fortune. It was just a child who loved singing and who had identified her heroes at a young age, and just imagined herself to be in those places. And when God took me through this season of being reintroduced to my dreams and visions and passions, that was one of the first ones that came flooding back, was just this desire to do music and this desire to write and sing and just do music. And so when he asked me to do it, and when he gave me this project to do, the first set of songs that I recorded was the EP Dreaming that goes with this devotional I mentioned. And the process of writing these songs, it was such a funny thing, because it was like God said, okay, we're going to go on this really painful journey where you are reintroduced to all the dreams that you had, and you're going to go through this very personal, private process where you're going to write these songs, and it's going to be like you're coming back to who you were, and you're going to rediscover your gifts, and you're going to have these really poignant moments with God, and they're going to be very private and personal. And that's going to be the vehicle to giving you your dream. You're going to make public all those private processing moments. There's a lot of P's in this process, a lot of P's in the story. You're going to make public these very private, processing, poignant moments that you've had with God. And that is going to be the vehicle to giving you your dream. And I was like, dang it, can't I just do some cool pop songs? Why does it have to be with private, processing, poignant moments? Why can't I just be a pop star? Oh, would have been so much easier. But, you know, got to trust God in these things. But the devotional Dreaming with God is all that whole journey God took me on rediscovering my dreams and getting back into connection with the dreams that he'd put in my heart and those things that I carry. And it just blew my mind how connected with eternity those places in us really are. Those places are not connected to humanity, they're connected to eternity. And when you understand that your dreams and your heart and your vision and drive are there for a greater reason than your day-to-day mundane life, it gives you a completely different perspective on life and why I'm here. Because it's training. I'm in training for eternity. I'm not just trying to get on a stage right now. I mean, I would love to be on a stage right now. Don't get me wrong. Those dreams are still very much there. And it's very hard at times to know that this isn't a season of fulfillment of those places. Those dreams I carry are not only for life on earth. They're not conditional for now. They could be fulfilled in eternity. And I've spoken to so many women, and I've been able to say to them, have you ever considered the concept? Have you ever considered the possibility that if you don't get to do this dream right now, it can still happen in eternity. And that's okay, because actually that's where you're going to spend the vast majority of forever is in eternity. And if God has created a dream in your heart that hasn't been fulfilled on earth, that does not mean that's the end and you never got it. There is always the possibility of an eternal fruit, an eternal fulfillment of those places that we carry, those creative places of what could be, those things that we carry in us that I just believe are so often from God, those places and things that don't always make sense for earth. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we do have those things, those ridiculous things that some people get to see those on earth. And I never know quite how to interact with those people. I'm always a bit jealous of them. That they have these most ridiculous dreams and then they happen. And I'm like, how, I don't even know what to say to you. It's not fair. But that's not the point. My point is, we need to understand that there is always an eternal perspective. It's not expiry date. It's not a case of we're born and then there's an expiry date and that's the end. Our gifts need to be invested in, but our character needs to be invested in. And we need to do that together, simultaneously. They need to go hand in hand. I love when I hear stories about people whose lives have just exploded into their dreams, like far above and beyond what they ever could have done for themselves. And always when I see people who are really impacting the world with the kingdom, they have been forged. Those characters have been forged. They have paid a price for their character being forged in those valleys. And that is why God is able to trust them with so much. So if you have a dream, or you've forgotten what your dreams are, or you've got no idea what they ever were, first of all, get in touch with me, let's talk. But if that's you and you don't understand why you never get these things, my first question to you would be, how can you look at developing your character? How is God trying to use the situation you're in, the struggle you're in, the valley you're in, the fire you're in? How is he trying to develop your character through that, so that he can trust more to you, so that he can open up the resources of heaven and pour out the storehouse over your life, so that those places can start becoming what your life looks like. Those dreams can start becoming reality. Those passions can start being tools and places where you impact with the kingdom. I really hope that has been some kind of encouragement to you today. And I do want to say, finally, before I close, that God does give the dreams of our hearts. And sometimes it requires those dreams being stripped back to the original dream that God had for our lives. Because I do believe our dreams were God's dreams for us before he gave them to us. But we so often corrupt them with lenses from the world. So sometimes our dream does need adjusting, but he loves to give us those things. He's always waiting to give us those things, but he needs to know that our character is going to redirect the glory to him and not take it on board for ourselves. Remember that previous episode we've already looked at. God loves a surrendered heart, because a surrendered heart won't steal that glory, and a surrendered heart comes with a character that's trustworthy. So if you're looking into what those dreams are, why haven't you ever been given your dreams? Why have you not been able to function in your drives and your passions? Look at the character. Look at the situations you're walking through. How can you grow? How can you be forged in that place so that God can start pouring out those things in your life? That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me on this Stripped Whole podcast. If you've liked what you've heard today, please leave a rating and a comment down below so that we can hear your feedback and do better next time. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next episode.